Welcome back, everybody, to Oktoberbrawl, week number 4. It's the final week before TwitchCon finals. And if you guys are just tuning in, or maybe if you're watching on the VODs, we just watched Crip and Dog go at it. And Dog was able to take the series 2-1. Take a look at how everything is shaping up here to the results screen, in case you guys missed it. Again, Dog took out Crip 2-1, but we still have Thijs and Reynad that's coming up here. And then we have, finally, Jackie Chan versus Ali Straza. Join with me this week is special guest Firebat, who will not only be doing this week, but also the TwitchCon finals. You enjoy that match, Firebat?
Yeah, I enjoyed that match. It was kind of cool to see the two different styles clash against each other. We had Dog trying to play, the fastest, most aggressive decks he could possibly build, and then we had Crip, on the other hand, trying to play the most defensive decks he could possibly build. Yep. So that's always a classic showdown between the two archetypes, which is entertaining.
All right, well, let's go ahead and welcome our next two players and hope that they can bring an equally entertaining series, if not more. Our first player from Team Void, it's Thijs, who's been also like Dog all over the world, competing at least. Seems like he's been streaming, competing, and now joining us on Oktoberbrawl. Thijs, you're doing okay, man? You've been doing a lot of Hearthstone lately.
A lot of Hearthstone already for 4 years, but I I enjoy it every day, and with new challenges coming up like this, it's just cool to there's so much possible, so it's always great to have a completely different challenge.
Yeah, very professional and cordial as always. Your opponent, equally cordial and professional as always, is Reynad. You couldn't even listen to that sentence without smiling, huh, Ray?
Hey, all right. I'm known for my professionalism, cordialness, and radiant positivity, Dan.
That's right.
I know what you're talking about.
You're looking extra comfortable today. I don't know why. Something just tells me about it.
It's just this T-shirt, I think.
I love it. So, talk to me about the journey through this week, the adventures. How was it for you, Reynad?
Not too bad. I definitely wish I put a little bit more time into research the way Crip did, because I ended up kind of breezing through Naxxramas faster than I expected. So I ended up having a bunch of wings at the end that I wasn't really prepared for, and that's kind of an expansion that required a lot more custom decks than I thought. I wish I basically looked at the rewards that I needed and then focused on the wings that I needed to do. But the thing I messed up on is I didn't know you could unlock any wing and play them in any order. I thought you had to do it sequentially, so I was really prepared for the first 4, and then the last couple, and just wasn't ready for. So a couple of cards I wish I could have gotten, but aside from that, not too bad. Gotcha.
Thijs, how was the adventure clearing for you?
I really liked it. I had a strategy of just roll written down from if I do it in this order against that hero, I can maybe do it in that time. It went a little bit harder because there were some of the adventures that were morose, was just keep talking. Medivh kept talking to me, and I told him skip that part. So I missed the last one or two the cards that I really wanted. But I'm really happy with the cards I got out of it.
Hey, after 3 weeks of you getting the cards that you wanted and Team Lightstrike, I think we can use it. But it's going to be really fun to see if Reynad can get his very big first win, or if Thijs can deny him. This is the second time you guys have played together, correct? If I recall correctly.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. So best of luck, gentlemen, and we'll see what happens at the end of this best of 3. So wow, it's always fun talking to both those guys there, Firebat. What was your takeaway from that interview?
My takeaway is that Team Void is a lot more confident than Team Light. We heard Thijs talk about how smooth his run went, how his preparation all just happened to work out, and everything was great. And on the other hand, we had Reynad, who said, I didn't prepare as much as I wanted to, and things didn't go his way. So clearly the confidence there, you're going to have more confidence on Thijs' side, and it's probably going to help him a little bit.
That's right. They had 45 minutes to clear as much of any solo adventures as they really choose to, as long as they drafted accordingly. So Reynad wanted to clear through Curse of Naxxramas. He said he cleared it faster than he thought he could. And of course, more time was given to them, depending on how you guys voted on the card packs, which you guys can get from link.twitch.tv/Oktoberbrawl for a limited time. It's already October. It's not going to be much longer. Twitch Prime is available in over 200 countries around the world. So make sure you check that out, as well as vote in the chat, HS Void, HS Light, to see if you guys can poll for Thijs or for Reynad. It seems like Reynad getting a little of that carryover from Crip. It was just pulling over for Crip's side at the end of that match, and it seems like some of the Thijs boys are showing up here. And of course, the Team Void, they had a lot more time in the 50s of minutes to clear some of the adventures. And I want to see what Thijs has gotten, because I was watching Reynad clear, and like you said, it's gotten some really powerful cards from Nax Ramus. But we also saw some really devastating cards from League of Explorers and Karazhan.
Right. I think if I had to pick like the expansion that I think was like the lowest impact is like Karazhan on the competitive metagame. But it still has some
Think
like
so?
yeah. Karazhan didn't change much when it came out, but that's just because the decks that were around were pre-rotation and were like crazy strong already.
Yep.
So it's kind of interesting to really try and think about, is that expansion good or not? Because it's hard to tell looking back at what happened during the competitive ladder season with it.
Well, Karazhan has a few big power cards like the portals, Firelands Portal,
Right.
Maelstrom Portal coming out to mind, and I think everyone still remembers, how important some of those other big controlling cards or combo cards like Arcane, or is it Arcane Giant? It is Arcane Giant,
yeah.
and Medivh the Guardian. But you're generally right in terms of like Nax Ramus, that changed the entire game. Or League of Explorers brought entire archetypes to your arsenal.
But the thing that's hard to evaluate is which is better, like standalone, because when Nax Ramus hit the game, there were no expansions, so there was less cards actually to work with. So of course, adding new cards is going to be better. Whereas when Karazhan came out, that was when Hearthstone had the most playable expansions
At the time.
Yeah. So then it impacted it less. So
true.
it's kind of interesting when you like look at that and try and build your strategy of what expansions am I going to go for, which expansions were really the best.
Yeah. I don't expect to see too much Black Rock Mountain. Even though there are some really good cards, Emperor Thorsten's really good, it does require, a kind of cohesive plan with dragons at least.
Okay,
and things like Twilight Guardians is an epic from the Grand Tournament. So without that guarantee of like some of these other really powerful dragon cards, it does become kind of hard to
Some like
guarantee.
aggro Blackwing Corruptor and Cobalt Scalebane decks.
Oh,
Those could have been
that's creative. I like
legit.
it.
Yeah, with Knights of the Frozen Throne. Because Knights of the Frozen Throne like rebuffed dragons. Like Black Rock Mountain was the first real dragon expansion, and then the Cobalt Scalebane and the Primordial Drake are insanely strong from Unguru, and
I buy it. I buy it for sure.
it could have been some sweet dragon synergies. But it seems like most of the players have really been gravitating towards the mechs in every deck.
Yeah, there's a low curve. They're solid on their own usually. Cogmaster side, like Spire Tank 3 mana 3/4 is very good proactive play. And also because when in sealed format, you use decks or cards across decks exclusively. So if you have mechs in one deck, you can't put mechs in the other unless you open more of them.
Right.
So that is partially why we tend to see at least one deck be a mech deck, and then other decks go along other themes.
That makes sense. Yeah, I remember playing the Red Bull team brawls a lot, where you use the sealed format, and a lot of times every team has the one mech deck, every team has the one beast deck, and like the one dragon deck, because in the sealed format you can only use the cards once. You got to divide them up, and synergy packages are usually fairly strong because you don't have tons of standalone cards that you can put in every deck, so you have to kind of rely on synergies a lot.
Another thing that we also saw was the lack of AoE availability to most players. But as the weeks progress, we start seeing more and more AoEs be available. Crip had double Lightning Storm. He had all these clears.
Double twisting, double
defile. Twisting is an epic, man. He's gotten a lot of AoE, and he had double twisting and Draxus from the classic set.
He even had the Murloc AoE.
Yeah, Corrupted Seer. That was Whispers of the Old Gods, right?
That card is not good.
I mean, he had Curator, so it made sense.
Thematically, the synergies is what brings it up, but like standalone, not a go-to.
Yeah. Well, the game's kind of shaped up with Reynad winning the board eventually. Thijs got on pretty fast, but Reynad fought back from it. But it seems like Reynad's going to run out of gas, but he has a lot of direct damage.
Not enough, though. That's the thing. At these points in the aggro mirrors, you fight for the board the whole game. You're trying to get ahead on board, and eventually you start realizing, hey, the board control, the tempo of board isn't the most relevant thing. It starts coming down to card advantage over time. And currently Thijs is the one that has the card advantage. So since both players are fairly even on board and fairly even on life, that's going to be the determining factor, because Thijs is just going to have more things to do.
Well, this Crackle's really important if it hits 4 or higher. And I mean, it's 75% of the time it does.
Right. But Reynad's out of threats to develop. He's going to have to be like a hero power game plan for a little while now.
Yeah, he's going to have to either... He's most likely going to have value unless he picks up another piece of burn here.
Okay. I mean, any minion's a good minion at this point. But it'd be interesting. What's the top end in this deck? What is his finisher cards that are going to be able to...
I mean, the thing about the interesting changes to Knights of the Frozen Throne is that you're guaranteed a legendary in your first 10 packs.
Right.
So all these players open a legendary guarantee in their every week.
Okay.
Or 2 of them because of each set that they open.
Sure.
In the classic set, I believe Reynad may have opened an Archmage Antonidas.
Whoa.
I believe. I could be mistaken based off of it, and I think that could be his top end, and that's what Mech often use because you got spare parts.
Exactly.
You're able to use Finicky Cloakfield and just.
Oh my gosh, the Archmage Antonidas Finicky Cloakfield.
Am I bringing back bad memories for you, Firebear?
Oh, the Mech meta. That was. You play against this aggro deck all game, and you're even on board. You're crushing them. You exhaust them of all resources. They have 1 spare part in their hand. Then they top deck Archmage Antonidas, and suddenly they just kill you from 30, basically, with how many fireballs they're able to generate the next turn. And there was no counterplay. There was nothing.
There was very little counterplay, that's for sure.
You just cried, man. It was brutal.
The counterplay was to open up social media.
Yeah, and just rage
threw out
on
a bunch
Twitter.
Of hashtags. Yeah. Oh, wow. Reynad picks up a 5-cost minion, which happens to just barely be too expensive to piece together removal. And I think he was also thinking about using the Roaring Torch over the Forgotten Torch, because I think he doesn't want to dilute his deck with even more Fireball draws right now.
I like this play from Reynad.
Ooh, this is creative.
He's really taking a nod towards understanding that, hey, being aggressive with my cards and tempo is irrelevant now. The thing that's relevant is how much value I get. So he's trading 2 hero powers and 4 mana for Thijs' card to try and catch back up on the card advantage here, which is a really smart play at this time because Thijs isn't going to burst him down from 30. He's not going to overload this board and rush him down because you can't do that from this position. He's not being able to snowball enough yet. So it's a really creative way to generate card advantage.
Yeah, and how does Thijs read into the situation too? You know, normally if you're trying to be very proactive, you try to get a big threat, and look at this creative use of Time Rewinder.
Wow. It's a pretty good use of Time Rewinder to make sure that the ping can't happen, but it's also kind of a low value Time Rewinder. You could have used it potentially on Fire Elemental. So Thijs is evaluating that the game's maybe not going to go long enough where he can get big value out of it, and he needs to just kind of cash it in right now.
Well, Mana Worm allows Reynad to remove this turn while developing a reasonable threat. Mana Worm is nowhere near as strong this late into the game, but its potential is still very high. Does that make Thijs want to Fire Elemental this down?
Yeah, no kidding. That's one of the best targets for Fire Elemental for sure.
It's still just a 1-mana minion compared to some of the other things you can snipe, but I think given his hand context, it's definitely the best play available.
Whenever you're just able to get value, that's a huge draw for Reynad. The Arcane Intellect, it's when you talk about card advantage, which is what the game kind of boiled down to at this point, this is 1 card that gives you 2, so it's always a 2-for-1 against your opponent. Whereas you see this Roaring Torch is trading the other way. It's killing a Fire Elemental that already killed something. So the Fire Elemental took out the water, or it took out the Mana Worm and the Roaring Torch.
Bone Mare.
Uh-oh.
Whirling Zap-O-Matic and Bone Mare. That is devastating combo.
It's pretty good. At this point, you could probably overwhelm your opponent by dealing enough damage. You could try and save the Bone Mare for extra value, play around Polymorph and such, and Flame Strikes and things like that by guaranteeing the hit on a Charger with Horse Rider and get a value trade or something.
It's true.
Because right now, the buff of the Bone Mare doesn't take a great trade. Whereas, like, the Horse Rider trade's really clean. So there's, like, some thought to it, but you're so far ahead that it's like, just jam Bone Mare, you probably win now.
Yeah, Reynad took it slow, but Thijs just drew his big bomb of the Bone Mare. Although, this helps, being able to fight back reasonably on board with Clockwork Gnome and the Clockwork Knight. It's not great.
It's not great. Reynad's going to need, like, a Flame Strike or something just to reset this board. Sticky Death Rattles.
It's 11 damage possibility for Thijs this turn. chooses instead to value trade. He feels really far ahead. You can also totem and see if you get some really good outcomes like the healing totems.
Wow, he trades the 5/5. Wants to try and make sure that, I guess...
The respect for maybe your opponent's Bone Mare or other mech synergies like Goblin Blast Mage.
Sure.
And still has a little bit of life to work with, but Thijs keeps drawing mid-sized minions.
Yeah.
Reynad not drawing anything but damage.
Yeah, that's one of the downsides of the Roaring Torches. We saw Reynad play 2 Roaring Torches, or Forgotten Torches, I'm sorry, and then 1 Roaring Torch. You add extra burn spells to your deck, and when you're ahead, that's fantastic, because that means burn spells kill your opponent. But when you're even or behind, burn spells trade very inefficiently with mid-range minions.
Oh
Wow.
my goodness.
Look the amount of threats in Thijs' deck. Thijs' deck is just a slightly slower, variant of Reynad's. So if it's able to keep up in the early game, this is what's going to happen.
Well, let that also be a lesson too. This is why minions often are like a large part of the game for fast decks, because people usually try to put big damage spells in, but they realize that minions get the recursive damage in, which is really powerful to play them. So if you're building a deck, you want to primarily make it more minion based as opposed to spell based.
Yeah, usually. Depending on what you're trying to do, though. Sometimes, if you're
an
aggro deck,
a fast deck,
yeah,
because you need some minions to stick. Even like the most burn-heavy Tempo Mage decks still needs minions to get damage in.
Even Pirate Warrior, the most burn-focused deck in the game,
needs minions.
More minions than spells slash
right.
weapons. So, yeah, you definitely want minions, and minions are the most important part about the aggro mirror. All of the lowest win rate cards in aggro mirrors are the burn spells. You look at like Fireball, Heroic Strike, Mortal Strike, Arcanite Reaper, things like that are the lowest win rate cards in aggro mirrors.
Yeah, that's some really good insight there. Let's go ahead and check in with Thijs and Reynad there. How did game 1 feel for you, Thijs, going up against Reynad's Mage? It feels like you guys have been, everyone's been matching Shaman and Mage together somehow.
Yeah, and I feel even the Shaman increased with the adventure I did. I could also pick up like the anti-aggro cards like Maelstrom Portal, so I felt that in kind of these matchups that will even improve the Shaman deck more.
Yeah, gotcha. And Reynad, from your perspective, it seems like the Mage hasn't been doing too well, but I think largely due to the fact that Thijs was drawing minions and you were just drawing a bunch of spells and didn't really get early game board control. So how do you feel about? Seems like you want to talk about that game.
Yeah, you're saying the Mage isn't doing well. I'm pretty sure it's the first time it's lost for me, but it's been doing pretty well, I think, overall the deck. But yeah, the Shaman matchup's definitely not good. They play like spider tanks and stuff, which just doesn't really line up well with my minions. So I was hoping to avoid Shaman with it, but yeah, queued into it. It wasn't a loss that was like really RNG ridden or anything. Like both of us had good draws. It's just a rough matchup from this particular Mage list, I think.
All right. Well, we're just getting game 1 underway. Are you feeling a little pressure right now? Because right now you're down 0-1, and you're still winless right now in Oktoberbrawl.
Yeah, you never fail to mention that every 5 minutes. I don't mind. It's the first few weeks were pretty brutal. I felt like my decks were definitely not at fault. Felt like the lists were fine. I had some like crazy games, especially last time I played against Thijs. But yeah, this time it's been like several weeks of pack disadvantage. So at this point, it starts to matter. Definitely, I feel like Shaman specifically is kind of like the one unbeatable class from Team Void. So, but I don't feel too bad losing to it, and I still think my other decks have a pretty good shot. So,
all right,
yeah, I think we'll do fine.
I like it. Well, good luck in game number 2, Reynad. He's going to need it, because in case you guys haven't heard, he's down 0-3. He actually hasn't won a single series in October.
I think that was less than 5 minutes that time.
That's right. I'm setting new records.
Oh, yeah,
you're
bringing it even faster.
Yeah, to be quite frank and honest, a lot of these players, they have respect for each other. They like each other. They actually hang out with each other a lot at events. Mm-hmm. So getting them to say like, well, I don't like Thijs and I think he's bad, or like, I don't really respect. They're not going to say anything like that. So you mainly focus on the fact like, well, I kind of want to win. They're competitive at the end of the day. And, everyone's been able to get a win so far. And I feel like Reynad would want to win one just for pride. Even if Team Light loses every single series, if you do your part, you feel pretty good.
All right. And he's got the Shaman, which Shaman's been a class that has been winning for pretty much everybody. It's a very powerful class with the sealed format.
Yeah, very versatile. I think it's just a symptom of Shaman getting a lot of help throughout the years. And I think it's also because Shaman, for a while in the very beginning of Hearthstone, struggled for a bit. So as time went on, more and more good Shaman cards came out. Probably one of the weaker expansions with Knights of the Frozen Throne, considering so much is freeze Shaman focused.
Yeah,
but they still got some decent cards through like the neutral set. you want to say something about the freeze Shaman?
It's freeze Shaman is so bad.
Hey, I've tried a lot
to
make it work.
Me as well, and it's not good.
It's just so against what you want to do as Shaman, which is because a lot of times the freeze is like so bad for tempo, and also the way Marabi works also is like not exactly what you want to be doing as Shaman. For now, I mean, we could say it easily from this point of view, but maybe in 6 months we'll be complaining about freeze Shaman. Wow. That's a pretty explosive opening again from Thijs, the Paladin. And again, it's
mechs are good.
It's the fact that mechs are just so snowbally of how they continue to lead to more mechs. But it also lines up pretty decently into a lightning storm.
Man, these players needed to get some doomsayers. Shut down these mechs.
It's an epic.
Yeah, I know. It's a lot of the control tools are epics, but
this hurts though. 6 cards are gonna get wiped. Reynad hits the 3 on the mech warper. Thijs out of cards, and I think that might be already the game because Thijs overextended into the lightning storm.
Definitely played out very aggressively there by Tyson. Got severely punished for playing as aggressively as he was, but we don't know the top end of the deck exactly. But maybe he has to play that aggressively. Maybe it's like a Divine Favor deck.
I really like the inclusion of Direwolf Alpha, by the way. It's a card that people don't really think about too much in token-based decks. At first glance in Shaman, they think Flametongue Totem.
Right.
But Direwolf Alpha also does very similar things. And Reynad is guaranteed a Flametongue Totem as well, by the way, because of the basic cards being unlocked. So it's just cool to have that additional token-based thing. And it's a very underrated card in sealed or limited formats in general.
Sure, yeah. I mean, Direwolf Alpha even sees occasional constructed play. Like
yeah.
With all the cards available, it still finds its way. It was sneaking into Aggro Druid. It snuck its way into Hunter a few times.
Zoo.
It's been in Zoo, yeah. It's a powerful card that people sometimes, don't think about. Flame Wreath Baseless. That's a powerful card that everybody thinks about.
Yeah. And Thijs does not have any way to control it right now.
Well,
he can
just
stop
picked it up. Yeah, the Righteous Protector controls it. It's that little protector, man. He is gonna take a beat, or she is gonna take a beating. But
I think it's he.
Is it a he?
I don't think it matters.
Either way, it's dead, right? Like, or maybe the bubble will tank all 7.
Annoyatrons and Righteous Protectors with the Grime Street Outfitter, which makes sense with how you want to buff all those Divine Shield with taunts.
Yeah, Annoyatron and Righteous Protector, like, I don't think a lot of players evaluated them and their power level correctly in the beginning. Just little teeny flexible taunts that can stop things like this are so crazy powerful. And when Annoyatron was in the metagame, it was played in tons of decks, and Righteous Protector is played in like every Paladin deck.
What do you think about Reynad going for the card advantage here with Mana Tide as opposed to playing for tempo with the strongest minions available?
I'm a little confused by it. He has no board comeback mechanisms besides Argent Horse Rider. If he had like a Lightning Storm in his hand, maybe I'd support it, but I guess he feels like he's far enough ahead to justify it. He's just trying to create, instead of like going all in against an Equality Consecrate, maybe he wants to create like incremental board advantage.
Yeah, I mean, it could be that he sensed the game is slowing down because Thijs has very poor plays. He knows one card's a spare part. The second one has just been generated.
We spoke like the last game they played, right? When Reynad had that turn, it was a turn 7, and he just pinged and floated 5 mana, and he just transitioned to playing for the value game. That's pretty important to do in these kind of games when it starts dwindling resources like that, and I guess he deemed that right now was the appropriate time for that transition to the value game, so he's giving up tempo and trying to maximize the efficiency of his cards. It might be a little too early. I'm a little scared for him.
Yeah.
But we'll have to just see how it pans out.
I mean, the Mana Tide did allow him to dig for an extra card, which in this turn got him the Nerubian Egg. If he wants to go slower, he can use like Flame Tongue and Direwolf for good trades if something sticks onto the board. He can remove the 5/5 right now also with Argent Horse Rider, Flame Tongue, and Direwolf, but that's kind of a messy board setup, and the 1/1 also gets a really good trade too. But perhaps Reynad feels like there's not enough time to fight back if he waits too long.
That 1/1, it's a sick trade out there, and the Flame Tongue Totem gets to go down.
Consecration as well, which is
looking
pretty appetizing from Thijs' point of view, because you get to develop behind it as well.
Yeah, Thijs is using... They're playing like very differently right now. So Reynad's trying to switch into the value game. Thijs is kind of sensing that, I guess, and is going all out aggressive with his hand. He's playing his cards as fast as possible, realizing that he needs to kind of close this game. He's going to get outvalued, so...
Or is he? I mean, he has a Time Rewinder to get
the Bone Mare back.
Double dip the Bone Mare.
Maybe maybe he won't get outvalued.
He can trade with the Bone Mare. Oh my goodness.
When your opponent tries to play the resource game against you, Vine Cleaver is one of the best answers in all of Hearthstone to counteract that.
It is I slept on this card a lot, and Admirable told me no. Like when it was first announced, and I was like, no, this card is insane.
In like grindy games, like, well, this was looking like it might go a little grindy, but now it's looking like Thijs might just run him over. But in really grindy games, Vine Cleaver can often take out 5 of your opponent's cards by itself.
Yeah. And also, it happens to work really well with Paladin's toolkit. If you play like Vine Cleaver and then Dino Size on turn 8, or you play like Blessing of Kings, more normal cards, it's just very, very, very good to set up a proactive game plan while removing things for value. That Bone Mare draw, and then Thijs able to...
The Aldor, by the way, this is a perfect draw here to be able to take value trades with his minions more effectively. Fits the curve for him to be able to play it with Vine Cleaver. That's disgusting.
Reynad have anything that can bail him out. Any volcanoes, any big cards we're not thinking of. Maybe even, you open up a legendary like Deathwing or something throughout the weeks.
Even just a Lightning Storm in this, that's probably the worst draw in the deck.
Sting. Wow, Thijs wins 2-0 off the back of a very strong mid-range Paladin deck.
Well, I think the talking point about that game was the position where Reynad decided he was ahead, and then he decided to kind of play his hand a little bit slower. Instead of developing stats, tried to develop the Mana Tide and tried to transition to this value game. Maybe based on hands reads that he's like, well, Thijs probably has like removal in his hand because he hasn't been playing those cards. Happened to be Bone Mare. Didn't work very well for him.
Well, that was off the top too.
Oh, that was off the top.
It was something that Thijs drew. Very timely draw. So.
Yeah, so that can be a bit frustrating to deal with. But just that transition point. Was it too early? Maybe. Maybe that's what ran him into a little bit of trouble. Was it the right time? It's just unfortunate the way Thijs drew afterwards because he hit all of his high-value threats. It's kind of interesting.
All right, well, let's go ahead and check in with the players, and after it's all been said and done, let's go ahead and ask them about their Oktoberbrawl experience. So, Thijs, how's Oktoberbrawl been for you, man?
Fun. I mean, it's something different than when you are normally streaming ladder, and well, I play a lot of ladder, so it's just cool to have a little bit different experience, and definitely enjoyed the Wolf Road about it.
Gotcha. Reynad, how is your Oktoberbrawl experience over the course of the 4 weeks?
It's been pretty fun. It's a cool format. I definitely like the first few weeks more than the last few, because by the time you get to the last few weeks, everyone has so many packs that it's just a lot of like constructed looking stuff, which is different, but it's also cool in a way. But I don't know. It's been an interesting format. I've had fun.
Gotcha. Do you think anything will change between now for either you or Team Light for the TwitchCon finals, or has this all been a long con and just setting up Team Void for the ultimate finish?
We'll see. We'll see. It's I think we have more to gain from playing the accounts a bit more and opening more packs than Team Void does. Our decks aren't constructed yet, but I think. I definitely think our decks will improve a lot in that time. I definitely think, with a bit different draws here and there, we can definitely take it.
Awesome. Thijs, I want to check in with you too about heading to TwitchCon for the finals. What excites you the most about coming to TwitchCon? Is it the finals itself, or is it meeting your fans or hanging out with friends?
It's also TwitchCon. Like, it's gonna be my first time at TwitchCon, and well, I have been already like streaming on Twitch for a long time. So it's definitely cool to meet everyone. But of course, also the finals of the Oktoberbrawl. If you participate in something, you want to win. At least that's how I see it, and I hope we can do well there too with Team Void.
All right, well, congratulations, Thijs. You're able to get the win, and Team Void takes home the victory this week. But we'll see you more at TwitchCon Finals. Thanks again for joining us. So with that, we are 2 matches in. Team Void guarantees the victory for the week, 3-1. We still have one more match. We'll play it out for the pride and also the bragging rights, because we have Jackie and Allie coming up here.
Potentially, maybe even the memes.
Maybe even the memes.
Because Jackie Chan usually plays something a little wacky. They don't call him Wacky Jackie for nothing.
Well, and you know, they are allowed to declare their decks, you know, so, or whatever decks that they really want to bring for the last week. So there's no like real incentive for Jackie at this point to only try hard. He can still kind of bring some fun decks. He declared the classes, but what decks is he going to bring? We'll find out when we come back here at Oktoberbrawl. Make sure to pick up your card backs. Link.twitch.tv/Oktoberbrawl. Pick them up for a limited time as we take an intermission and we return the final match of the regular season of Oktoberbrawl.